I'm one of the, I'm one of the senior career advisor at ProTouch Professional Training. Before we start the session, let me give a quick overview about us. So, ProTouch Analytics, POSH trainer to deliver POSH trainings, business analytics for manager certification, corporate trainer and coach certification, and as well emotional intelligence trainer and coach certification with organizational development and change management certification. We also provide customized programs as well. And all our programs are accredited by the top bodies like ICAF, SHRM, HRCI, CPD, and IBAC. I'm so glad to see many existing students, team member, and aspiring students of ProTouch who has joined this learning session. So now let's begin the learning session with Neha and Dhruv, a guest to so for extensive in training, teaching, and research. And also she brings a wealth of expertise as a certified trainer, dedicated researcher, and a dynamic communicator. Her passion lies in creating and engaging learning environments and presenting complex subjects in an accessible and actionable manner. Coming to Dhruv, Dhruv holds a work experience of more than 2 decades in IT, telecom, NBFCS, and real estate, and had been a part of teams which launched Airtel, ICICI Priority, World Trade Centers. And he is following his passion of coaching and training people and also running a marketing and business consulting firm based out of Chandigarh and Dubai. It's honor to have Neha and Dhruv with us today morning. Over to you, Neha.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Shreya, for such an overwhelming introduction. I'm really grateful to ProTouch
You're most welcome.
for. Am I audible, everyone? Okay, so I'm really grateful to ProTouch for providing this wonderful opportunity, and of course to Dr. Sethi for giving us this platform. This is highly, highly insightful and very, very encouraging. And thanks to the entire team of ProTouch for making this happen. Okay, so good morning once again. And today, me and Dhruv will be taking you to the different aspects of decision making. We'll explore the different strategies, how we take decisions, because decisions is something not an art, it is not a skill, rather it is a life skill, and we all should know how to take relevant decisions. So today together, we'll be diving into the various concepts. But before I start with my slides and presentation, I would like all of you to do a very small activity. I want you all to come up and please introduce yourself, but you have to add 2 adjectives in front of your name, which defines your personality. So for an example, if I have to define myself, I'll say determined and honest Neha. So both of them, they describe my personality. So please, I would like you to volunteer and please raise your hands and come up with your adjectives. Please, guys, you can go ahead.
Hi.
Hi, Prashant.
Honest and humble, Prashant.
Honest and humble, Prashant. Okay.
Yes.
Shivani.
Shy and sensitive.
Yeah, you look shy. Yeah, of course. Okay, Shobha says she's persistent and loyal. Okay, anyone else? Priya? Okay, honest and kind is Pooja. Everybody is honest these days, you know. Anyone else?
Hi, this is Shubhanjali. So my 2 adjectives would be strong and sassy.
No, strong and sassy. Wow, that's great. Okay, one last. Anyone?
Dedicated and consistent Shanara.
Dedicated and consistent, Shanara. That's great. Okay, thank you for being so participative and sporty. My question to all of you is that did you deliberately thought about these adjectives, or you just randomly spoke whatever came to your mind? Did you give a thought that what you're going to say? Did you decide something, or you randomly spoke about it? So you can use the chat box to write T for thoughtful. I mean, you gave a thought, and R for random. Okay, you gave a thought, Raj. You can please use the chat box to write. Okay. Okay. Everybody gave a thought when they spoke about themselves. Okay. Most of you gave a thought about what you spoke about yourself. Imagine this is you're talking about yourself. So you were aware about it. So that is the reason, even if you did not give a thought, you were confident about what you were saying. Now imagine in the organizations when you do not know what is going to come up and you have to take quick decisions, how difficult it is, because you can't take random decisions and you don't have enough time to give a lot of thoughts on it. I mean, to pay or to give a lot of attention towards it, to it. So there comes the role of effective decision making. That is why I say it is not a science, it is not an art, rather it is a life skill which we all should have. I'm just sharing my screen. Please acknowledge if you can see my screen, all of you. Can you?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. So I always say, that we need to choose our decisions very wisely because they are the ones who are going to shape our destinies. Whatever I decide today, I'll see the repercussions after a month, years, and for rest of my life to come. So we need to choose decisions very wisely. Just a second. I'm just give me a moment, please. Can you all see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry for it was some technical error. Okay, now moving ahead. Now my next question to you is, do you all struggle with everyday decision making? Or rather, I should ask that, have you ever taken any difficult decision in life till now?
Yes.
Yes, all of us must have taken the difficult decisions and we take it every day. Imagine that we take thousands of decisions every day. And if we just restructure the steps of the decision-making process, don't you think so that we'll be making the decisions more effectively and efficiently? And just before we dive into these steps of decision-making process, I want to talk about a little importance of decision-making in the corporate world, because everybody says that your decision was wrong or your decision was right. But why do we say that? Because our decisions helps us in solving the biggest problems of our life. So for an example, let's say you have a new product launching coming up and you have to take quick decision about the packaging of a product. Then your decision should be quick. It should be efficient. It should be able to give the relevant solution. And then your solution should be such which solves your problem. So it is a vicious cycle you see. So your decision-making skills should be so efficient that they actually should end up solving your problem. Second, it leads to a personal growth. Of course, the kind of decisions we take that demonstrate the kind of values we have or the kind of the culture the organization is having. Remember, when we take decisions and when we evaluate the alternatives or we evaluate the options, we try to choose the best and to make the balance between the success and the failure. Also, our decisions helps us to avoid the analysis paralysis effect. That is when we are presented with too many variables and we find it difficult to choose select the right option or to take the right decisions. So of course, the decision making helps in achieving helps in our personal growth, and they also helps in achieving the goals which we have set for ourselves. There is a research by Harvard University which says that 80% of the managers who are quick and efficient in taking decisions, they rise to the level of the success faster than their colleagues in the organization. So the decision making should be on time, and of course, it will help you in achieving your goals. Now, this is the most important and the interesting part of the entire presentation is the process of decision making. It may look very monotonous, but before I explain you or talk you about this process, I want to share a very small story related to this, so it is easier for all of us to relate. So this is a story of the class of entrepreneurship students at Stanford University. So the entire class of entrepreneurship was divided into different teams, and the instructor presented all the teams with a challenge. The instructor first handed over an envelope with $5 to all the teams and asked them to multiply or to make most of the money from this $5 in a short time frame. So he simply asked that you treat this $5 as a seed fund for your new project, and within a time frame of 1 week, you make most out of this $5. You multiply this money as much as you can. And then at the end, you have to give a presentation to the entire class talking about the highlights of your project, how much money you made, and what were the challenges you faced while doing this assignment. Now, you all must be thinking that what did the winning team do? Because $5 is a small amount and the time frame was also very short. So what did they do? How did they strategize things? And to your surprise, everyone, the winning team did not use $5. Winning team, very strategically, they sold their rights of presentation to a company in their town, which was ready to come and give a presentation about themselves in front of the brilliant Stanford students about their recruitment once they finished their graduation. So they invited a firm to come to their campus at the Stanford University, sold their opportunity to give the presentation to that company, and asked them that they can talk about their firm and convince students to join their organization once they finish the graduation. So do you see how strategically they played? They must have gone through all the alternatives they had. They must have strategized everything. And then they balanced the time which they had against the real-time opportunity that was the presentation, which required challenging all the barriers and evaluating all the alternatives. Same, you apply this story of Stanford to this entire process of decision making. So the first is we need to identify the problem. See, the problem was not making enough money, or the problem was not $5. The problem was the short period of time the students had. So at times it happens that when we look at the problem, we start looking at the byproducts of the problem. We do not focus at the main agenda. You go to a doctor, the doctor is going to identify your problem and make the diagnosis against the symptoms which you share with the doctor. So the identification will not only solve the diagnosis is equally important as a manager. So when we work in a team, we need to see that we have identified the problem and also we are making the correct diagnoses for the same. Next is we need to gather the information. Imagine how much information gathering must have been done by the students. When I say information gathering, it is very, very subjective. Some believe that it is market research, some believe it is customer feedback, some says it is some kind of a survey. But I always say that, you need to look back at your past and peep into your present so that you can plan your future. Gather as much information related to the problem you can have. Students must have evaluated, must have gathered a lot of information so that they could generate a lot of options in front of them. More options you have in front of them, more freedom you have to choose the right option for yourself or the right solution for yourself. Therefore, the next comes, you need to generate as many options for yourself. Now, when you talk about options, simply means various alternatives, solutions to solve your problem. I'll give you another very interesting example when it comes to the option generation. How many of you have ever been to any stadium to watch any sort of a match? Cricket, table tennis, any sort of a match. Has anyone, you can please raise your hands. Has anyone been to the stadium? Okay, I can see a few hands coming up. So there you would see that there's a vending machine which gives the aerated drinks. So you will not find one single vending machine. You will find 2-3 vending machines which are giving different types of aerated drinks. Now imagine if there is only one vending machine, there is no decision to be taken because there are no options to decide. However, on the other side, when you see different vending machines giving different kinds of aerated drinks, your brain starts to think in line of those options and you start to think which one to choose. So had there been no other vending machine, no decision to be taken, you were sorted whether to have it, whether not to have it. Most of the time you will not have it because you know that aerated drinks are not good for health. However, when you're presented with the option, you get confused and then the process of decision making actually starts because it is giving you the freedom, that window to think whether you can buy or which one to choose and which one to leave, which one to buy. Next comes the evaluation and selection. You need to very, very carefully evaluate and select your alternatives. Now, when I say evaluation, that means you need to identify the positives and negatives which is coming with each solution. Now, the students at the Stanford must be having multiple options with them. But keeping in mind, the most important problem in this entire situation was the time frame. So they must have kept the time frame in mind, and then they must have evaluated all the options, and then they would have realized that selling their rights to presentation is the right solution because it is going to give them the desired result and going to give them a lot of money. So we need to very carefully evaluate and select the alternatives which we have. Imagine in a scenario where you are in the organization and you have a new product to launch in the market and the existing one are suffering to survive in the market. There must be multiple options in front of you, like whether to expand, whether to diversify, whether to de-invest, whether to revenge the new products, how to shape up the products. We need to look at both the pros and cons, that which is going to be the most viable solution and giving us maximum benefit. And last but not the least is the implementation and monitoring. When I say implementation, that means we need to implement and see whether we are able to receive the desired results or not. And the reason I started with this story was because when in the organization we are presented with the problem, everybody rushes to solve it. Everybody wants to be in the good books, wants to give the solution so that they get noticed. However, we forget that we have to overcome the barriers to solve the problem. And what are the barriers? The barriers is our own thinking. We need to go beyond it and look for a solution. When we overcome the barriers, when we overcome the constraints, and when we evaluate the options well, I call it as a pre-mortem approach, which means that in most of the organization, you see that the managers, once they implement a solution, they do the post-mortem of their project. Means they see that what went right, what went wrong, was the solution viable, is it giving the desired results or not? Just imagine if they do this a step before, they do the pre-mortem and they visualize the success and the failure which is coming with their chosen alternative. Don't you think so the entire game of decision making will change? It is very important to visualize the failures as it is important to visualize the success. because when we visualize the failure, it will help us to take the right decisions and at the right time. So I call it as a pre-mortem approach. So you need to overcome the barriers. You need to have a pre-mortem approach. And then we need to keep in mind the very small basic details. What was the basic details in the Stanford, with the Stanford University student? The basic detail was that they are the students of prestigious Stanford University. And therefore, they utilize this opportunity of selling their rights to some company who can well utilize this opportunity and make most out of it. So remember, if we are going to keep these small details and basic details in mind, we are always going to be in a win-win situation with the decision-making process. Moving next, there are a few models which we relate to the process of decision making, and one of the most common model is rational decision making model. Now, when I talk about rational decision making model, it is as simple as the process of decision making. You see that we need to define the problem, we need to gather the information, we need to analyze the alternatives, and we need to select the best out of them. In most of the organizations, you see the managers, even we use this simple model because we find that it is easy to implement. However, we only do the third and the fourth step. We forget the first two steps in most of the cases. Now imagine if you use this model along with your intuition, what amazing sets of benefits you're going to have. You also call it as a intuitive decision making. And we also call it as a decision making which comes from a gut, mind, and heart. So where we utilize our experience and emotions to take decisions. The research says that 80% of the firefighters, they use their intuitions to plan their next move and solve the problem. That means to come up with the best solution, they use their experience and the patterns of the problems which they have seen before to come up with the right solution. There, where they use their intuition, so they need not to evaluate the alternatives. So basically, they are not generating the alternatives, they're using their intuition to solve the problem. Similarly, the intuitive decision making you will see in the chess players, where they visualize the wide range of patterns, and they make the grandmaster, that he visualizes the wide range of patterns, and then he plans his or her next move. Again, the intuitive decision making. So it is basically a kind of a voice or a kind of a noise which we hear from our head, from our heart, which is telling us to do things in a particular manner. It is a kind of a sixth sense also, you can say. But you can't have it immediately. It comes over a period of time. So managers in most of the organizations, they also use intuitions to take strategic decisions. But don't you think so that it is so challenging in a very competitive environment like business, where you use your intuitions to take such decisions? So the best strategy for the managers is to combine, both the rational and intuitive decision making, so that they can make the right decision. You can take an example of Xerox. The Xerox got rid of all its Merrick products just because of having an intuitive edge. Same goes with Reliance. The Reliance transition from textile to polyester to petroleum to telecommunication to hospitality and to multiple other businesses, is a clear-cut example of an intuitive edge which Ambani's had. So this is a very strong decision. This is a very strong skill. Their intuitions plays a very important role. Our gut, the experiences which we had in past, help us to analyze the pattern. And of course, the emotional intelligence, how well we use our emotions and channelize them to take the right decisions, is all about the intuitive decision making. Shruti, you have something to say?
Yeah, just wanted to ask, but don't you think that these intuitive decision makings would be like, they can heavily influence you by personal biases?
Of course, that's yes, that's the Dhruv is going to cover. We are going to talk about the challenges of that, Shruti. But thanks for reminding me that I need to keep this in mind. That Dhruv, it is an input for you. Okay, moving on to Dhruv, I request him to please take over.
Yeah, thank you very much, Neha. I hope I'm audible to everyone. Am I? Please say yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. First
Dhruv,
of all,
Yes.
can we put it on slideshow? Because some of the text is difficult to read. If you can.
I'll do that. I'll do
see,
that.
Neha is helping me with that.
Yeah, because there was some problem when I
No.
was putting it on the slideshow. I was not able to move the slides.
I needed to apologize for two things. I don't know how do you prioritize it. I'm little. I was traveling, so I don't have all the equipment with me. So I'm like a little disabled that way, and also my system is not giving me the background which it should give. And this anyway, I thought we should go ahead so that you get the first instance of a quick decision making exercise. We had
No
to decide. Yeah.
Carry
So
on, carry on.
I hope you'll
Neha, do you want me
forgive
to
me for
share the
that.
slide if it's?
Yeah, I
Do you
think
want
Neha
me to
is.
share the slide?
Yeah, please do that. Please. Should I stop
Perfect.
sharing?
Yes, please.
So as Neha was discussing, right? So whenever we take a decision, it's actually a very tricky kind of a thing, because we can't stop being humans and we can't stop using our logical mind. So there are two approaches to any decision which we make. I mean, I'm very sure. I'll give you a live example. If there is a webinar which is open to all, we have a different perspective to it. But the moment it gets paid, our logical mind starts working towards it, right? So this is how a decision comes into play. So whenever we talk of an approach towards a decision making, see, from the point we wake up to the point we start getting ready for our office or for our daily routines, to the point we are on our dining table, we are willing to eat something, wanting to eat something, the way we want our day to go ahead, we are making decisions. We are making choices. Now the point is, what are the factors which actually force us to take certain decisions? Now there are many factors to it. But before we go on to the factors, you have to understand, whenever we are to make a decision, at times we are not conscious about it, whether that decision is a subjective kind of a subject or a objective kind of a subject on which we are supposed to take that decision, right? Objective, when I say, would mean very rational, which is very numeric, which can be put into figures, wherein we can actually make a decision based out on an equation. But when we say objective, it is more to deal with humans, it is more to deal with vision, it's more to deal with values and those kind of factors. So whenever any decision is made, whether on a corporate level or on an individual level, we have to understand that both these things are working. Shruti, I guess that answers your question. Now it is the percentage of influence one factor has on the other one. I hope you understand. So because it's ultimately an individual taking a decision, be it a team leader, be it an individual in a personal relationship or in a social setup, be it Dhirubhai Ambani, be it JRD Tata, they took decision based on a gut feeling, and then rational decision making process followed. So we have to understand the decisions work like that, right? Now, if we have to actually give a broader picture, what are the factors which are actually influencing? So one thing we know, it's a human taking a decision. It's not a robot taking a decision. So there has to be a cognitive bias into it, or a cognitive factor into it. It's not algorithm which is working. It would actually go back. It would talk of emotions. It would talk of the learnings of life which we had. It would talk of the experiences we had. That subconsciously works and influences any kind of decision, particularly when it comes to perceiving the outcomes, right? So this is one thing. So whenever we talk of individual factors, you can actually put it into many heads. It can be personality, values, beliefs, attitudes, emotions. It can be social background. It could be cultural background. It could be financial background, a number of things which relate, which makes us human. Then there are cognitive factors. These are factors, as Neha was telling you, when we talk of firefighters or when we talk of doctors who are working in emergency. So it is a repeated exercises which tend to become a habit and which tend to create a reflex out of which we work. So there are these are the bases. When you know on an instant, this is what is actually happening. This is what we call, in general terms, ki banda bada mature hai ya experienced hai, and he knows. So it is basically that cognitive learning which is coming in, right? Then social factors, again, when it comes to corporates, when it comes to individuals, वो उसका variation can change, उसका nomenclature can change, in the sense, when a big company is talking of a mining area, so then the social environment or environmental environment may be different, कि वो एक different perspective से सोच रहा है. But when I and you are planning a vacation, then the social setup and environmental factor would also come into play, but on a different intensity, right? And obviously there is a situational factor, that the result which you are taking, the decision which you are taking, and the result which you are actually expecting, uska impact kitna hone wala, what is the kind of impact, right? So that also makes a decision. For example, if each one of us is having a breakfast, so we are given 2-3 options. What do you like to have? So you give option number 1, your mom says or your hubby says or whosoever says is not available. So that's not that significant, and you say, okay, take this. So the organizations also work like this. That this is too insignificant to have a bigger impact. So it's okay. We can try this, but then there are bigger things. On them, altogether different approach needs to go on. So these are primarily factors based on the approach we are taking, and ultimately a decision, unless taken by a machine, would inculcate both the approaches, that is rational as well as intuitive approach, right? So if we move on to the next slide, you'll just see, I want to factor in few things. Neha, can we go on to the next slide, please? We can see what kind of cognitive biases generally happen, because end of the day, it's the humans who are taking, and at least I believe for another 15-20 years, humans are going to take the decisions, right? The way AI is going, maybe 20 years down the line, this slide might not be relevant, but at least for next 20-25 years, humans are going to do it. So these are the biases. Please understand, which work in a decision making, and it's like a double-edged sword. These biases are double-edged swords. They can work well for you and they can work against the decision also. Because when I am on a situation where I have to make a decision, I may be very right based on a confirmation bias. Now, if we talk of confirmation biases, what does that mean? Confirmation bias basically means what I already know, the information which I already have, based on that, I am taking a decision. I don't know, and I hope I offend nobody, but 20 years ago or 25 years ago, when people or organizations used to take decisions, they were more on confirmation bias, because we had a closed economy, technology was not moving, we knew the trends, right? But over a period of time, with technological changes happening, Generation X coming in, millennials coming in, the whole atmosphere changing, maybe it has challenged the confirmational bias, because things change. Give you an example. I mean, I'm giving you my example. I used to think that I know people, but in last 10 years, the whole workforce has changed. The whole attitude towards working has changed. The whole approach towards life has changed. So maybe at times that confirmational bias would not work. But this is a bias which can help you, but it can also work against you. So these are few things which we wanted to highlight while we make decisions. Another thing is anchoring bias. Anchoring bias is an initial perception about a thing. Sociology and psychology says one thing, that the first hand information we get about anything makes the basis of any further information we would get about that particular thing. It's like the fresh information when we get to know, imagine yourself when we first operated a mobile, or first mobile we had, we remember the functions, and then till date we have that mobile as a benchmark, right? So that is anchoring bias. We are still anchored to that mobile, which was Nokia, whatever, 3110 or 5110. So these are anchoring biases, and particularly in our life, both in professional life, when you are moving up the ladder, you go up on a senior position because you have moved through and you had that journey and you saw successes based on certain strategies. We tend to anchor ourselves with those strategies. So we anchor ourselves with the beliefs which we had made up maybe 10 years or 15 years ago. And the moment that belief is challenged, we are not very comfortable with. So when we are actually talking of decision making process, we need to be very aware that there is an anchor, there is a referral point, we are going back, we somewhere in our subconscious or conscious way, we are just trying to compare and make that anchor a basis of our future decisions. Then is availability heuristics. This is like the information which we have, we just don't want to work a little harder. We don't want to, I'm really sorry I'm putting it that way, right? That we don't want to work a little harder. But then what happens is, what is readily available, we try to gather it because there is a bias working on it. Now you have to understand this. When we say availability heuristic, the moment information comes in, your own confirmational bias starts coming in. There was an experiment done by psychologists. That's called red car experiment. And you might just, when you go out, you just check it out. The car or bike you drive, and when you start consciously looking at it, you start seeing those cars and those bikes in large numbers on the road. This was called red car experiment. So again, that may not be very logical, that may not be the reality, but that's how, when we make a decision, we just work on the available information and our confirmational bias comes in and we make a decision. Then it's a group thing. Now, group thinking is basically, we have to again understand how group dynamics work. Group dynamics generally would be led by one or two dominating people, and generally groups are formed, informal groups are formed of like-minded people who actually tend to think alike. So when you're thinking alike, the probability of critically thinking actually goes down, because generally we tend to agree or disagree. And if it is not a proper exercise being done, like 6 thinking hats, if there is no harmony within the group, it can actually cause a little bit of trouble. You may never reach a consensus. So these are basic 4 factors which would affect a decision making apart from the rational mathematical equations. In coming next slide, I'll just tell you how can we make an effective decision. Any questions anyone has till now? Anyone wants to know, anybody feels that, they want to know or add to whatever I have said? Everybody got it? I mean, हमारे ना सेल्स लैंग्वेज में एक चीज बोलते हैं, जब कोई कुछ नहीं पूछता है तो उसका दो मतलब होता है, या सब समझ आ गया या कुछ समझ नहीं आया. So which part should I take?
Either of neither of them.
Oh, so you're in between.
Midway, and we are totally
Yeah.
connected. Don't worry. I'm
Okay.
sure I understand you are doing this in virtual mode, but it's very good. And the red card example is a fantastic one. It's quite popular, and yeah, good to hear that.
Yeah. So this is what given the time and resources we had enough resources, but the way we had to put it,
Right.
in this particular slide, we are just trying to explain two different approaches of decision making. One is objective, another is subjective. Now, on an objective approach, we can see decision metrics which can help you reach a decision. Another approach is cost benefit analysis, which is again an objective approach, which is an equation where it's a mathematically you can actually ascertain कि मेरे को whether I should take this decision or I should not take this decision, because it can be mathematically proved, right? This is how it works. This is gonna benefit me. The ratio is higher. The ratio is lower, right? The weightage is higher. The weightage is lower. But on your right hand side, there is SWOT analysis and brainstorming. Now these are subjective exercises or models for decision making. Now, if I say objective and subjective, as Neha was saying, a leader or a group decides on a gut feeling that we want to do it. Now, how we are going to do it is a big question. So, big question में अब हम जब discussion करते हैं, so a part of it goes into SWOT and brainstorming. Once brainstorm, it can go to decision making matrix, which is a numeric value attached to every aspect of every factor of the decision which you are going to make. I hope you have heard of these techniques. You have, or shall I explain it briefly? What do you like me to do? Shall I explain? No. We're done. Okay.
Dhruv, one question, because brainstorming is something which I often indulge into, and in one conversation it was said that brainstorming is you're not supposed to counter any points in a brainstorming session. It has to be a free-flowing session.
Yes.
So I just wanted to hear, is that a correct perspective, or is there any other angle to it?
It has to be time bound. And one of the best brainstorming activities, by the way, is 6 thinking hats, if you have heard of that. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you, Dhruvji. Yes.
Okay. So, Saurabh, what actually is done is, let's say you are 5 people out there and a problem comes over. And you think of the stakeholders and then you actually note it down, asking perspective from these 5 people about how they think about different stakeholders, how they are going to. So it's an extensive exercise wherein, a lot of effort is being put mentally. I hope you're getting it. Like if I was a customer care executive and we wanted to enhance our customer services or customer experience, and there is a finance guy also, we start brainstorming. So first of all, we'll ask these guys, how from your perspective do you think the customer experience should go better? That's the first stage of it. Then you change the positions of these guys. I don't know whether you know it or not. In Kotak Mahindra Bank, what they started doing was Mr. Uday Kotak started going to the bank and they started changing the seats of the people. So someday the teller of the bank would be a customer care executive. Someday the manager would sit on a telling, on cash dispersal. Someday the operations guy would go and sit on the front desk. So now this is actually a brainstorming happening on the field in the real chances. But in a brainstorming session, particularly in 6 thinking hats, you try to move these positions and start getting feedbacks from these people. So that is the brainstorming part. Saurabh, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It's just that जब हम बोलते हैं कि there should not be any countered in a
नहीं
brainstorming process.
उसमें क्या होता है सौरभ कि
हम्म,
कई बार पूरा डिस्कशन हाईजैक हो जाता है अगर हम वो ना करें. So जो भी कंडक्ट कर रहा है he has to just ensure that the whole discussion stays relevant. क्योंकि there at times you come across people, वो डिपेंड करता है कि कौन से ग्रुप का आप ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग कर रहे हो. Some people take it lightly, तो वहां पे आपको देखना पड़ेगा because creativity actually gets killed and the flow gets off the moment you stop somebody from saying it. So बड़ा tactfully you have to bring back the people onto the mode जहां पे हम वो कर रहे हैं, right जी. डिसीजन मेकिंग जो हमारा डिसीजन मैट्रिक्स है उसमें हम वे आउट करते हैं. मतलब दिस इज लाइक मैथमेटिकल इक्वेशन. यू वे आउट थिंग्स जैसे हम साइकोमेट्रिक टेस्ट में देते हैं. व्हाट डू यू प्रेफर, give it to your preference from 1 to 5. So you already have parameters on which you want to work. You have weighed them and then you are actually giving weightage to them. You multiply them amongst different alternatives, and the option with the highest weightage actually is the one you should be opting for. Similarly, cost benefit analysis में benefit cost ratio निकाल लेता हूँ. This is the total cost which we are going to incur. This is the perceived returns or the benefits which we are going to go, which we are going to get. And then based on that ratio, you actually find out what decisions we have to take. So primarily, these are the things which actually work out when consciously हमको करना चाहिए. On everything. We don't. Most of the time we are relying on our gut. Most of the time, we say चलता है या हो जाएगा. और एक सबसे बड़ा जो pitfall है, that is what most of us actually ignore. We know it कि वो बहुत बड़ा hurdle है, but we ignore it. That is called decision making fatigue. You have so many options, you have so much of information. After some time we just give up कि छोड़ यार कौन इतना करेगा. This is too demanding. Particularly it happens in corporates that you are sitting there in 2 days trying to discuss a product or a strategy and you are ending up nowhere using all the techniques, and finally you say no, we don't have time and enough is enough. Dimag garam ho gaya, so fine, out of whatever we have come out, let this be the decision. This happens because we are not actually aware of the whole process itself. So that is what we should be looking at. We should first of all acknowledge that there are biases which are cognitive, which can be, by social biases, which can be anchoring biases. Then we have to acknowledge that no decision can be purely rational, can be purely intuitive. It has to come. Assumption, the moment assumption comes in, intuition has to come in, right? It's not a mathematical equation. Unless it's a mathematical equation, yes, we have different techniques of reaching a decision. For example, I want to work on an accounting decision. I want to work on an actuarial decision. It's a simple equation. I just put them in, lock them in, I get an answer, and that's a decision line. But the moment I talk anything further, intuition or gut feeling or biases or learning, they all would trickle. So I think this is a very brief overview of the different models we can use. But then, as Neha said, and which is most important, is we should be able to identify the problem first. Actually, I at times talk to people. Finding a problem is like playing a snooker or a carom board. Ball, which actually is not to be potted. So you should find the problem first and then understand what approach it is. Yeah. Anything anybody would like to add or say? You're most welcome to do that.
Yeah. Dhruvji, can we take them for a case study, then?
Yeah. So this is
Yeah.
what I am coming to. That's it from my side. I think now Neha would take you through a case study, which would give you a better idea of how things work.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a very small case which I have all of you. I request all of you to please go through this. And I want you to present the solution for this according to the decision making model which we discussed. So there's a case about the TechStream. It's a mid-sized technology company specializing in cloud-based software solutions for small and medium-sized enterprises. Their primary product, StreamFlow, helps SMEs manage workflow automation and project management. Initially launched 3 years ago, StreamFlow had steady growth, but recently started losing market share to newer, more feature-rich competitors. This decline raised concerns among the leadership team about the future of the product. Now, the company has two options. Either they continue with StreamFlow or they get into the new product offering. So the problem is that should TechStream continue enhancing their StreamFlow, which is their current existing product, or should they plan to get into a new product offering? Shreya, I request you to move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so now you can follow this model. That is identifying the problem, gather the information, alternatives, evaluate alternatives, select the best, implement the decision, monitor and evaluate. So I give you 2 minutes to think. I mean, we all can identify the problem. Can anyone come up with the problem, please?
Yeah, I suggest we can put that case in the slide.
Yeah, correct. The
Yeah,
case.
yeah. Okay.
Hi. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes, sir, please go on.
Yeah, this looks to me like a typical Nokia case, wherein, Nokia was not ready to change the product and, not upgrade and still keep making what it wanted to make. And a pioneer and having a 98% market share 2 decades ago, today is vanished completely from the market. So here what I see is, TechStream is not upgrading TechStream. The problem is on the product. They got to tweak the product. They got to upgrade the product.
Yeah. So the problem is whether they should continue with the same
Yes.
product or whether they should get into a new product offering. Right?
They should continue with the same product, upgrading the product.
So we were just, focusing on the problem first, so the problem is that, whether they want to continue with the same or they want to add a new product to their offerings. Okay. The next step is, okay. So the next step is, gather information. So how the firm is going to gather the information? Any idea? What are the various ways of gathering the right information?
Market study, competitor analysis.
Yes. Rightly said. Yes, they can do the market analysis where they can figure out what the competitors are doing as of now. They can look into the emerging trends. Very well said. Anyone else?
They could consider looking into the competitor's product so they can find out what the competition is offering so they can upgrade on theirs.
Yes, they can also do that. They can go for the surveys. I can see in the chat box. They can go for the surveys. Yes, and of course they can get into the customer feedbacks also. You know what exactly the customer wants. What are they exactly looking? So which will give them a clear idea how to proceed further. Okay, the next step is evaluating the alternatives. The next step is gathering the options. So what all options are there? What are alternatives they have?
Strategic partnership.
Yeah, of course, this is one of the alternatives. Yes, they can go for the strategic partnership. So the one alternative which they have is whether, number one, they continue with the stream flow. Second is that they bring into the new products, they diversify or they expand. And third could be, what I believe could be the integration of both the options and including AI into this, because, you know, they can have this as one of their alternatives, that they can have AI into the stream flow, and which could lead to another new product. They can go for the strategic partnerships as well. So all these options they have. Next is evaluating those alternatives. So if we talk about alternative one, so can you please come up that, you know, if they continue with the stream flow, what are going to be the pros and cons?
Sustaining in the market could be a challenge.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yes. Could be a challenge, sustaining the market. What could be the advantage?
They already have the customer base.
Exactly, they already have the customer base, so it is easier for them to sustain in the market. And next is, let's say, option two, getting into a new product offering. So what are the advantages if they get into a new product?
They have more leverage because they already have the database with them. It's just that they need to use the feedback and do the right process.
Yeah, Shobha, very well said. Yes, exactly. And then what could be the disadvantage if they continue with if they get into a new product?
Losing the market share.
Yeah, and they will be making a lot of investment that could be risky also. They do not know whether they'll survive in the market or not. Then they had the third option, integrating the AI. So what could be which could be the integration of both first and second. So they continue with Streamflow and then they integrate, let's say, AI into it and get into a new product. So what could be the advantage?
I think they're going to be beneficial in every way because they're going to make more revenue out of the investment.
Yes, and the disadvantage would be similar. Again, it is going to be a substantial investment. So there will be a little uncertainty, but if you see the risk benefit analysis, what Dhruvji told, it is going to give us better results in comparison to option one and option two. So moving on to the next step, choosing the best alternative. So we could see that the third option, which we thought of integration of option one and option two, is the best out of all. And implementing it, the firm should see that how it works. They should implement this to their organization, see whether they are getting the benefit or not. I told you the pre-mortem approach. They should visualize that whatever options they are choosing, is this going to give the results what they expected or not? So they need to follow that approach. And finally, the monitorization should be there. They need to monitor the entire process to figure out if there is any lacuna in the implementation or not, or whether the possible results could be achieved or not. So this was a very small example of how we could implement the decision-making model. Again, I would say in the entire process of decision-making, Dhruvji also said this, that, you know, identification of the problem is the most important step. You know, we not only have to identify, but we need to diagnose it. We need to overcome the barriers. We need to have a pre-mortem approach. We need to choose the best model. It could be the integration of rational or intuition, or it could be only rational or intuition, depending upon the kind of problem we have in the corporate scenario. Then we need to choose the best technique. Either it is subjective or objective. We could go for cost benefit decision tree, or we could go for SWOT analysis, or we could go for brainstorming. And then overcoming biases is equally important, because then we need to keep our head clear. That's what I initially said, that we need to overcome the barriers. That means we need to keep a big window open for ourselves to be innovative when we are implementing the decisions and choosing the alternatives. So I think this was from both from me and Dhruv's side. So any questions? Shreya, we can move on to the next slide, please. So that was from our side. So anything which you want to put across, any questions you have, please, you can ask. And then another slide which we have added is the next step. So you please keep us posted, whatever comes new in your decision-making journey. So it is easier for all of us to relate and learn something new all the time.
No questions?
I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, sir.
Yeah,
Please.
please.
Yeah, I wanted to know. So I was talking to one company when I was doing a diagnosis of a sales training, and they were having a situation wherein they're doing the complete presentation. After the presentation, the client does not come back with anything, neither negotiation, nothing. So it's a very strange case. So what could be the reason behind? It's just that the presentation went haywire, or
So the company presented the idea to the client, and the client did not come back.
come back at all. No negotiation, nothing. It's just that they've not come back at all.
So what was the probable reason with the client or with the company?
I have a feeling the presentation was something which didn't make any impact, that they didn't feel the need to come back at all.
So is it your intuition, your gut feeling says this?
That is my gut feeling, because they don't even know the reason behind.
So probably if your gut feeling is like that, then you should go ahead with this. Most of the time, and especially with females, I have seen, their sixth senses and gut feelings work better than males. So I think this could be the probable reason that they could not relate it to the presentation. Even in most of the scenarios, I feel that my gut feeling really, it has worked for me. So I believe more than rational decision-making, I believe on intuitive decision-making process. And over the years, I've seen that I've been, successful in taking the decisions. I'm not pro in it, but most of the time I feel that, my decisions were right. And I've never got a chance to regret them. Anyone else? Then I think, Shreya, this was from our side. Anything else you want to put across?
So it was a really nice session, a really insightful one. And thank you for the great session, Neha and Dhruv. Anyone, if have any question, please, they can ask them.
But I think we kept the time frame in mind. We were very particular to the time frame. So,
right. Thank you, Neha. Thank you, Dhruv. Thank you, everyone.
Very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being such an amazing audience. And thank you, everybody, for being so participative.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shobha, especially. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Neha.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Dhruv.